Hello and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Bob Dylan Deep Dive. We are exiting the 60s. This is the final album of the 60s. He got a load in that decade, to be fair to him. But 2 year gap between the previous album, John Wesley Harding, and this one, Nashville Skyline. And, a lot of what I said about John Wesley Harding a good amount of it does apply to this album as well. Dylan's going for a more laid back musical approach here. We are very far removed from the sort of rocking intensity of Highway 61 Revisited and Blonde on Blonde. This is a much more laid back, maybe less essential affair than those classic albums. But I do think for me it is a step up from John Wesley Harding. I think there is a more there's more enthusiasm for the material here, I think, and Bob's got. I guess the thing to note is that Bob's got a new voice. He's doing this strange sort of country croon. If you've heard it, you know how weird it is compared to his normal voice. But the first time you hear it, it's like, what the hell? Did I put on the wrong album? But it's cool and it works really well for this sound. This is an even bigger step into the country influence than he'd ever done before. And country as a genre is interesting for me because I've only really recently grown an appreciation for country. But even before I did, I think this album was one that I enjoyed regardless. The album opens on a rendition of Girl from the North Country, which of course you'll remember was on the Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. So he's redone that song, but this time he's got Johnny Cash with him to do a duet. A lot of mixed opinion on which version is better. I prefer the original solo version, but I still enjoy this version with Johnny Cash. Very strange opening to the album because you start off with a duet with Johnny Cash of a song already previously released, and then you go straight into the semi-title track, the Nashville Skyline Rag, which is an instrumental. So very odd first two tracks. Doesn't really grab me and get me into the mood of the album, even if I do enjoy those tracks. Is one of the more sort of upbeat, sort of cowboy fun songs on the album, and I do enjoy it. It being an instrumental, again, a bit odd. Imagine being a Dylan fan in 1969. He's been away for 2 years, and this is how he kicks off the album. You then get To Be Alone With You, which is a cool sort of bluesier track. Love the rhythm of that one. To me, the crowning achievement of the album is I Threw It All Away. Absolutely gorgeous song. Just so good, so melancholic, and his voice fits it so perfectly as well. But you do get, the album's only 27 minutes long. I'm not sure if it is his shortest album, but it's definitely one of his shortest albums. And there's just a bit too much sort of lightweight, fluffy material for me, especially, this is Bob Dylan we're talking about. And, something like Peggy Day doesn't really do it for me. On the contrary, Lay Lady Lay is probably the signature song of the album. It's really lovely. I wouldn't put it in that top tier of Dylan songs, but I do think it is really great. One More Night, another song that I can take or leave. It's fine. I do, though, think that this album is probably more than the sum of its parts in a way. There are some tracks that I would never really go back to in their own right, but there are a few tracks scattered throughout that I really love. And as a straight through listen, it's really nice. The flow after you get past those first two tracks is a really odd beginning. I think the sequencing after that point is really good. Tell Me That It Isn't True, also pretty good. I don't love it, but it's a good example of the kind of sound he was going for on this album. Country Pie, there. Another one that's fine while it's on in the context of the album, but not one I ever seek to revisit. And then just like John Wesley Harding before it, the album ends on a high. Tonight I'll Be Staying Here With You is an absolutely lovely closer, a real album highlight for sure. Even if discovering the 1975 live version makes it feel less important, I do think that it is a lovely way to close the album. It's definitely one of the best songs on it. Like I said, an album that's probably better than the sum of its parts. It has this just lovely, like warm vibe, makes it a really easy listen, along with the length. I'm going to go for a 7 out of 10 on this one. You can see the track ratings there as well. My least favorite track probably being Country Pie, but Peggy Day and One More Night also not that great. Nothing bad here, just a bit mediocre. And then I Threw It All Away, of course, is my favorite, with Tonight I'll Be Staying Here With You just behind. Um, then is the matter of placing it in the ranking. I think I would put it just above The Times They Are a Changin'. Even though the highs on this album aren't quite as high as on that album, I think the full album listening experience and the atmosphere of this album makes me more likely to go back to it in full. I do like that his voice went back to his sort of more signature drawl, but I did enjoy having this sort of country crooner style. I say for one album because I haven't actually heard Self Portrait, which is the next one, but I know that his voice is back to more of a Dylan style by New Morning. So it'll be interesting to see. Overall, an enjoyable album. I wouldn't say it's top tier Dylan, but it is a good listen and definitely an album that if you're a fan of his and a fan of country, definitely worth checking out. So there we have it. The 60s are done. Self Portrait is next. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. What do you think of Nashville Skyline? Share the channel with a friend, of course. And I will hopefully catch you next week for my review of Self Portrait.